All right. Well,
Rock and stone, everyone.
rock and stone, American Krogan. How's it going?
It's going. I was just complaining about it raining profusely on my plastic skylight, and it has stopped raining. So I'm I'm doing a little better than I was a couple seconds ago.
Well, that's good. Thanks for the lemon slots. Good to see you and Schmerling and Michael.
Yeah, rock and stone forever.
Well,
You got like a nice little aesthetic cosmetic skin for your pickaxe, I think.
oh yeah, the
By the beer.
Yeah, I don't have
We
that. I
fight
need that.
for
I want
rock
that.
and stone.
I must have it.
yeah.
I
You
will
got.
pay thousands of dollars to have it immediately.
You can customize your pickaxe in this game. What this game really needs in terms of customization is some way to like save presets and copy them. So here you have these 3 different loadouts, and you know a pickaxe is made out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cosmetic pieces. So you can't just like let's say you get some new cosmetic things for your pickaxe, which you just get by playing the game. You just play it and you get it for free. And then you're like, okay, this is what I want the pickaxe to be on all my characters. Okay, well, you have 7 pieces, you have 3 slots on a character, and then you have 4 characters. And it's just an absolute ton
Tedious,
of
yeah.
clicking. You know, like, oh, which one was it? Okay, it's this one and this. It's just a terrible click fest with no copying. You know, no copy paste. What is this? Slot says pickaxe hats. Yeah, they're a hat for your hand. It's a hat for your
Well, just
axe.
I think we should perhaps remember the African children in the cobalt mines in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, who right at this moment are probably mining for the materials we need to have in our graphics card and computers so that we can play this stuff.
Hmm. I wonder. They probably don't have very cool pickaxes.
They probably don't. No, the reason I bring that up though is just because the other day Xbox, obviously Embargo and I are against that type of activity. At this point though, it's just kind of amusing and depressing how Xbox will tweet out something or post some social media post about how hate has no place in their community. Yet, if you look into their mining if you look into like their smelting and mining operations, or not their mining operations, but their flow of goods, their supply chain, it's like they literally have little brown people being abused and for mining purposes and whatnot within that supply chain. Now, it's usually their own governments and their own people who are abusing them and then selling the merchandise to Western companies. But it's just still kind of like amusing that they'll act like, oh, the worst possible thing you can do is be a racist, but we have a company that thrives off of little African children in cobalt mines. There's no place for bigotry in the Xbox community, but there is a place in the Xbox Microsoft supply chain for child minors.
Yeah, and probably quite a bit of slavery.
Right. Oh yeah. A lot of those people are, and again, I think it's important to reiterate here that my understanding is that most of the time when it is slavery, it's their own people. Like it's not a bunch of white guys with AKs surrounding the slave camp. It's a bunch of Congolese people.
It's their co-ethnics.
Cameroon. Yes, it's the co-ethnics.
But increasingly, it might be more Chinese management in a lot of these companies.
I think in Liberia recently there were 14 Chinese nationals who were deported for that kind of activity.
All right. Mini mules, huh? Oh, okay. we'll fight a dreadnought up here.
This seems like a slightly new level to me. I don't know if I've played a level quite like this. Uh-oh. Oh, we're gonna... I don't know what's going on.
It's all
Where
good.
are you?
Right here.
Oh.
All right, shoot that one a bit, and then shoot the one above you.
It's an arbalest. Seek cover.
We want to damage them roughly equally-ish. Uh-oh. Okay, other one. Okay, they're gonna heal a little bit. That's okay. Well. Oh, one on the ceiling. Oh, two on the ceiling.
Don't let the lacerator get
Okay,
too
get the one
far.
on the wall if you can. Oops. Because that's the higher health one. If I can freeze it, we can maybe burst it down. Oh, goodness. Throwing explosives at me. Okay, now the other one.
Feel much better.
Alright. These are about to go down.
Dreadnought wipe
Boom!
out.
Look at that! They both died at the same time.
Completed.
Red sugar incoming.
You know what they should add? They should definitely add a way for us, like, if we're, like turn around.
The high
Wait a
five?
second, like,
Open.
yeah, like, or just smash the pickaxes together and have, like, a clang.
Oh,
like,
that would
like
be
sparks.
cool.
That would be awesome. I mean, that would be, like, really, really cool.
Yeah.
Zip line ready.
What does that say? Bloopy fruit.
I tried to jump on top of the manatee thing.
Yeah, the cave angel. Uh-oh. Goopers. Swarmers.
Just take your sweet time, old lady. I've got all day.
So, have you heard any more about them, about potentially allowing for modding? Like, because it would be really cool to just aesthetically, like, swap out the
My
enemies with
grandpa
something
told me
else.
they used real mules back in the day. Keeping up
So
the
there
tradition.
is modding in the game now.
Okay.
That was the most recent update. So the most recent update doesn't have a lot of stuff in it, like no new biomes or anything. You know, they changed around a couple overclocks, but they didn't do like a lot of sophisticated stuff because most of the update was on the back end with allowing modding. So when you go into the server list, which we can't do right now, you'll
Right.
see people's lobby title will sometimes tell you about the mods they might be running.
Have you looked into what kind of modding is available? Like what we can do? Like, is there a Nexus or is there a modding repository already or anything like that? Or
I don't know. I haven't looked into that. At first I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that. Now I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Let's see here.
One down.
Offchi says, did I only grow to hate the word community over the last year or so? I don't know what you mean.
Pickaxe.
road to hate work community?
The word community?
The word community. Oh. I don't think any of us hate the word community. It's just that the word community is often used in like a really inappropriate context.
Yeah.
Like
LGBT
the Xbox community
community.
is not a community.
Yeah.
And like it's just, you know, it's sorry, it's just not.
It's like every company is referring to the purchaser of their products as a community. Like
Right, which is
the
okay.
Oscar Mayer sandwich bologna community, right?
Right. What's funny about Bioshock Infinite, and I know I keep talking about that. I know people are really tired of me talking about that probably because it's just like, Crow can get the video done, get the videos done. We don't want to hear about it anymore. But anyway, they make fun of company towns with Fink Enterprises or Fink Industries. And, oh boy.
I'm on a X.
And, you know, so like that, you know, Irrational Games in 2K were like dunking on company towns, and company towns were like, you know, I mean, really, if we're being honest, they kind of still exist to a certain extent. You know, and they're trying, like Google and other companies are trying to go into Nevada and establish their own, like, sort of autonomous zones where they can, like, collect taxes and, like, you know, it's not like it's gone. But anyway, you know, they're making fun of the idea of, like, oh, a special currency for, you know, they're making fun of script. They're making fun of the special corporate currencies and company stores and corporate paternalism, corporate welfare and all of that. And it's just like, you know, most video game development studios and publishers, it's like, you know, they're all into making their own currency. They're all into having, you know, talking about their own community or whatever. So it's like, there isn't a whole lot of self-awareness in these capitalistic companies that often critique historical capitalism.
Right. Well, I mean, they look at the world through the various caricatures they know, and, you know, they've set themselves up as this sort of, like, you know, some sort of combination of, you know, workers' rights champion up in their own head, so they naturally can't see the parallels to everything else. So where's this other mule that we need to repair?
I can hear the beacon, but it's like, you know, the reason, the one way you can know that none of these people really care about workers' rights is, like, they will champion all of the, you know, Eastern European and Southern European immigrants being taken advantage of during the Gilded Age, and then they'll turn around today and call the great-grandchildren of all those immigrants, you know, recipients of white privilege.
Yeah.
So it's never about what people claim that it's about. It really is just straight up anti-white.
Yeah. Is it over here?
I heard it back in there.
There it is.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, grab a couple legs. Oscar Mayer sandwich bologna community. Yeah, exactly.
Velveeta cheese community.
Never been big on Velveeta.
I have.
This home safely.
You what?
I know it's I have. I love Velveeta.
Oh, really?
I know it's disgusting. I know it's garbage. You know, I wouldn't eat it all the time because it is garbage, but I do enjoy eating it when it's available, because it's not really available down here.
Oh, I hear a thing. What's this monster?
But honestly, again, most of the cheese down here is just garbage. So
it's surprising.
just-
You start going to other places in the world, and, like, a lot of them don't have much cheese.
right. We always have to remember that white people don't have good food, and that we need all these other types of people to make food for us because we're totally culinarily challenged, you know? We don't know about spice.
Apparently.
Oh, there's no apparently about it, buddy.
Hmm.
We need Indians for curry, because you can't import curry by itself.
Yeah. Cookbooks.
You can't read cookbooks. We're illiterate now too.
Where is this? Okay, there's a thing right above us. Look at that. Pure skill. Michael says corporations also refer to their workers as family. They manipulate people's emotions to obtain as much profit as possible. Yeah, I was never a fan
that's true.
of the recent. You see the stuff on television. They'll do like the well, you think of even Cheers, right? All these television shows that were like basically social arrangements that were like really close, tight-knit, really rewarding, very caring, but not based around families. It was based around workplaces,
Anything but family.
like Mary Tyler Moore Show, or a bar like Cheers. And it's like they are creating this sort of pseudo-family through strangers and coworkers. And I think a lot of people, especially young women, watch that. They see that. They see how rewarding it's portrayed. They want to take part in that because they are loving, caring people to a large degree. But they don't realize that they're being fucking bamboozled. And coworkers are not your family.
Mary Tyler Moore is a great example of that show, not the actress herself, because she was great in the Dick Van Dyke Show, but in the Mary Tyler Moore Show, I mean, yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because it's like this single woman who, like, quote unquote, obtains her freedom by living as a single woman in the big city. And it's just like the whole opening sequence every time, you're gonna make it after all. She throws her hat up in the air, and it's just like, you know, like, I mean, come on, man. Why don't you go back to being Dick Van Dyke's wife? I mean, you were much happier, because she really is kind of miserable most of the time in the show, it seems like. I mean, that's the irony. And I think all of her friends are single. I don't think any of her friends are married.
I think so.
I should look into how many seasons that show had.
I don't know. Schmerlin says, like, what's your second preferred donation method? Is that not working?
I mean, they always could donate library currency.
Oh, yeah. Library, that works. I don't know how do I ever get it out, though.
I think they have it set up now. I haven't looked into it, and I should, but you can convert their currency into other cryptocurrencies.
Oh, switch for Bitcoin.
We only got one shot at this.
Yeah. There you go. Probably have my Odyssey library. Michael says Tillamook is the best. I'd say it's good. It's good and available everywhere, right?
Triangulation at 50%.
You know, pretty much every grocery store, more or less, in the United States is going to have Tillamook.
They're going to have what?
Tillamook? Well, it's a cheese maker. So it's not like artisan cheese, but it's a step up in some ways. Personally, you know what's really good for cheese? I've said this on Twitter before. I know it's controversial. Most underrated cheese of all.
Cottage cheese.
Cottage cheese. And if you want cottage cheese, it's going to be slightly more expensive than the store brand, but Dairy Pure. You know Dairy Pure? You'll see them in the dairy section a lot, in like all across the country. You know, they're a big operation. But when they name themselves Dairy Pure, they mean it, you know? You'll look at store brands from these different, you know, white label manufacturers, and they have emulsifiers and thickeners, right, to make things seem more luxurious. Various additives to the product. Dairy Pure is almost never has any sort of additive or thickener. Oh, where's that?
I mean, this is what always bugs me about, like, nah, I'm not gonna talk about that. God, there was something I was gonna. Oh, cottage cheese and jelly. Did you ever eat that as a kid?
Cottage cheese and jelly, like a sandwich?
Yeah. No, not a sandwich. I mean, you just mix jelly in with cottage cheese and eat it with a spoon.
Fuel cells
What?
connected to drop pod. Prepare the fuel cells for
I
charge.
thought that was like a fairly American thing, because like I did that all the time as a kid, and everybody I knew did it.
Wow, that must be a
Yeah.
regional thing. I have never even heard of that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cottage
Chad.
cheese and jelly.
Who's had cottage cheese and jelly? And it's not even a sandwich. It's just spooned in.
Yeah. I mean, I never put cottage cheese on a sandwich.
Michael K says,
I don't even
that
know
sounds
what that-
disgusting.
Whatever.
I've never heard of it.
Oh, it's awesome. You should try it before you judge it.
I've had salsa with it. You know, cottage cheese, of course, is a dairy and a dairy with fat in it, which of course cuts spice, right? So you can mix it with like a spicy salsa, cut the spice, and still retain a lot of the flavors, right? So a lot of the shit's gonna come in from the hole above us, so be ready for that. Because this damn thing wanted to go down to the lower level, apparently.
Fuel cells at 50%.
Big Daddy Matt says he's seen people mix cottage cheese and pineapples, but not jelly. And Slots has had fruit and cottage cheese before. I've seen that. I've had that. Didn't like that. The pineapple stuff. So,
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I can't stress this enough. It was like a staple thing for where I grew
Fuel
up.
cells at 75%.
well, you
You're
probably,
almost
where you grew up, did you have fluffernutters?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know what those are.
That's marshmallow fluff and peanut butter sandwich.
Oh, I've eaten that. I never called it that.
What'd you call it?
I don't know, just peanut butter and marshmallows. I mean,
I think that's a little bit more sort of New England-ish, where you got the fluffernutters.
Fuel cells fully charged. Drop pod engine powering up.
well, you
Fully
know
down.
where I
Almost ready to
grew up,
fuel
and
Yeah.
that's
goods out.
close enough to that area that there would be some overlap.
Yeah. Yeah, I never had it as a kid until I moved out there. I moved out to sort of the northeast United States, and that's where come up to the top so you're not stuck in that little hole. We can move out of there, and then you can grab a thing. But yeah, I never knew about fluffernutters where I grew up. If you want to know where I grew up, I didn't know what fluffernutters were, but I did know what a hot dish was. So there you go, if anyone knows where hot dishes come from.
Getting more ammo.
Dean says, my dad and I used to eat it all the time. What, jelly and cottage cheese? Darkstorm says, I've had that, still have that. I don't use jelly, but guava paste mixed with cheese?
I'm not familiar with that.
Adrian says, fluffernutter sounds so wrong. Well,
Oh, no,
I mean,
it's awesome. Oh, peanut butter and marshmallows are great.
yeah, I mean, it's great if you want to, like, gain 20 pounds.
Well, I mean, that's not right. It's good. It tastes good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it tastes great.
We're leaving with or without you.
That's the problem. Okay, get in. Stop using ammo. We're out of here. I mean, we're going down
Well
further.
done. We're taking you deeper.
Peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Anybody do that?
I've heard of such a thing, but I've never done it.
Oh yeah, it's real good. Peanut butter on toasted bread. With bananas. Very, very good.
It's a lot of banana. Hey, so Krogan spent some time in Latin America. Have you gotten to try the different bananas they got down there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have like real small sweet bananas.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're like 4.5, 5 inches in length, and probably like 3 inches in diameter, maybe 4 inches in diameter. Those are real good. Those are really good for banana bread, making banana bread.
Attention miners. Complete your second stage deep dive objectives.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of a whole bunch of different ones offhand, but yeah, I have tried them. They use plantains for a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally think you would put a plantain in. Because, you know, sometimes they can be sort of used like potatoes.
Yeah, like a starch.
Stay clear
Yeah.
from the impact zone.
Well, and unripe bananas in general can be used for that. Like lots of different types of bananas, they'll use it really unripe and it's sort of starchy and
Pump jack
they'll cook it down or whatever.
Inbound.
Jack hooked up to the refiner. Loot bug looted.
Okay.
But what's interesting is for like bananas, like when an American thinks of a banana, that kind of banana.
Yeah, Cavendish.
There are all kinds of different words. Like every region has their own word for that. So like if you use the word for banana where I live, and you go to some other place and you use that word, nobody will know what you're talking about.
Stuck on one down.
Do you think on some level that's influenced at all by some local variety? Or is
No.
it really all Cavendish bananas?
It's not a it's not a local variety. Like
Okay.
it's literally a different word for the same thing. Like when a lot of Venezuelans came here, you know, they all had their own word for banana, and it confused everybody. Because it's completely different. It's not like a cognate or anything. Like it has like no shared roots. You know, so it's not like you know, some Germanic word that if you heard as an English speaker, you'd be like, oh, I know what that is, or you know, like, no, it's not like that.
All right, you build the pipes. You know, build these pipes up.
I'd rather sit here and talk about bananas.
I mean, you can talk about bananas while
And build
holding
the
down
pipes.
the mouse button on a pipe.
Loot bug down.
what I hate
Schmerling
about
says
this.
peanut butter and banana sandwiches killed Elvis.
Oh, I guess I gotta go to the other end
Yeah, you gotta
to
go.
build the pipes.
You gotta start the build at the thing. Okay, where's this last one? Be down here or something.
Loot bug
Building this just
eliminated.
makes me think of a garden hose. It doesn't make me think of a pipeline. It just looks like a garden hose that's extending.
Well, it's like that. Only instead of water, it's liquid morkite.
Sorry, little bug. Your own fault for being full of goodness.
So have we thought more about maybe making like a commentary on how the dwarves are supremacists and they're taking away the rights of the bugs, they're colonizing the bugs, and maybe we need to make some kind of oh boy, lots of exploding bugs.
Done. Time to grind.
Well, someone could definitely make that commentary.
I mean, I think it would be hilarious.
I think it would be good. Ooh, here we go. Here's the last one.
Well done. Pipeline successfully established.
Ordering pump jack.
Request accepted. Stand clear. Pump jack inbound.
Okay.
You see Black Pilt's new video?
I have not.
It's on the most Jewish film ever made.
No, I haven't seen it.
That's what it's called. It's really good. It's about that movie, The Believer. I think you should watch it. It's very creepy.
Slot says peanut butter and jelly. Anyone heard of that? I think I've heard of that.
Right here.
That
Yeah, I
being
think
said,
so.
you know, when I grew up, we'd call it peanut butter and jelly, but everyone was eating more or less peanut butter and jam. Jelly is... never been big on the texture of jelly. I mean, I'm okay with it now as an adult, but as a kid, I never liked
Another
jelly.
pipeline
Right.
established.
Now,
You just
in the
need to
grocery
set up one
stores,
more, and then we can start the
this
extraction
started to
sequence.
happen probably 20 years ago. I started to see like peanut butter and jelly in the same jar mixed.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I couldn't stand it then. I can't stand it now. I just think that that is just so, like, you, like, I mean, it's just like you can't have two jars. Like you're so lazy. I mean, really, are you even like saving time, or like, are you really even, like, addressing your laziness by putting peanut butter and jelly in a jar? Like, what does that really accomplish? Like, what is the point of that?
Tell you what, it's a hell of a
Like-
lot more expensive. I remember I calculated this at one point. It was something like 6 or 7 times the price of regular jelly and peanut butter.
Well, then it's just like, you know, if you use regular, if like, you know, you can only use it for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You
Yeah.
know, like you can't use the jelly for anything else. You can't use the peanut butter for anything else. And so it's just like you're paying a premium for your own laziness, and then and then you can't, you know, it's just dumb. It's
Wonder
just
what
really dumb.
stuff
I
they're
guess it's not dumb
serving
because
at
people
tonight.
buy it, and I'm pretty sure it's still stocked in stores. I don't think I've seen it down here. Or maybe I did see it down here. Maybe that did rub me the wrong way. I don't ever buy any kind of store
This is
brand
greasy
peanut butter down here, though. I know people who make it, and I always buy it from them. Although you can get like Peter Pan and Jif and all of that stuff down here, but I buy actual homemade peanut butter, and it's cheaper. It's probably only cheaper though because the Jif and the Peter Pan and all that's
What
imported.
a beauty!
But
They had to
still,
go through the. Oop. They had to go through the import process. The corrupt import process.
oh, it's terrible, man. Like it's terrible. Like a bag of like Twizzlers, like those real big bags that are like a foot long and like maybe like 5 inches wide. Like those big bags, like they're like $1 in the U.S. or something, but down here they're like $20. Like that's.
Ready?
And again, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, not that, like, I'm far more upset about how electronics are so taxed down here because people don't make a lot of money. And, you know, by charging a premium tax on electronics, you're making it impossible for poor people going to college to get, you know, computers and stuff. But Twizzlers, I don't really care. I mean, it's just like people shouldn't be eating that crap anyway. So I mean,
Nitro's been withdrawn. The supply pod is inbound.
because like you know they have a real high tax in a lot of South American countries on cigarettes, and that's good. You know, they should just tax that into oblivion. Especially if you have like a partially socialized or a heavily socialized healthcare system. You know.
Oh yeah, it starts making more and more financial sense. And I mean, that's sort of the. And that's like the ultimate, even if it takes a while for it to happen, I mean, that's like the inevitable conclusion of a socialized healthcare system, right? If your health isn't your own personal responsibility to manage, then ultimately you don't necessarily get the choice of things like cigarettes.
I mean,
Even
this
all
is what-
foods at some point will have to be restricted from you if it affects your health
I mean, this
in a
is
way
what
that
a lot
other
of
people have to handle.
progressives today do not understand that it's like you can't have all personal freedom and all this socialized stuff together. Like, you know, if you want all this socialized stuff, that's great, that's fine. I mean, I'm personally for that to a very large extent, but you're gonna have to give up a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
You know? And that's fine. I think, you know, overall the general public welfare supersedes personal freedom.
So Slots wants to
I'm
know
the-
if applesauce is jam. It's not.
No.
You need to. Applesauce is just mostly crushed
Applesauce.
apples.
Yeah.
It might have some sugar added, but jam is a preserved product with a lot of sugar in it, using sugar as the primary preservative, right? Applesauce is mostly preserved. Well, applesauce is to a large degree not very preserved, and when it is preserved, it's you know, with heat, right? All right. Where's the other one?
Watch your sight line. This one likes to shoot from a distance.
Oh. All right, they're healing each other now. Off-Tree says his dad eats quark and jam sandwiches almost every day for dinner. Quark, another word for cottage cheese? I think it is. Where are all these exploders going? Oh, it's an exploder infestation, that's right. Whoop, 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 whoop. Well. Well, they are gonna heal, and then we're gonna do our last burst down. Lot says quarks are subatomic particles. That's true, but I don't think that's what he's making the sandwiches out of.
Watch out, don't get crushed by the resupply. Alright.
Oh, they're healing again? Jeez. Alright, here we go. I'll get the other one. Alright. Well.
I'm taking some of the ammo.
One more.
Well done, team. Immediate dreadnought threat eliminated. Objective completed. All objectives completed. You're ready to start the pump sequence.
Dean says he bought one of those mixed jelly peanut butter jars and thought it tasted awful compared to the separate jars. Well, it's got a lot more sugar in the peanut butter than you would normally expect for peanut butter. So it's gonna make a very, very sweet
The liquid morkite
concoction.
is being extracted. Refinery and all
Like
pump
much
jacks
sweeter
are
than
working at full
normal
capacity.
peanut butter and jelly,
Be warned,
which is probably one of the
noise
reasons
will
people
draw
like
in
it,
locals,
right?
so stay
Like,
on your toes
we're just
and do
very
what you can
well
to protect
programmed
and
to
maintain the
really
equipment.
like sugar.
Right, because it's
Got
high.
bugs,
It's
lots
got
of
a lot
them.
of calories, and you know, for most of our evolutionary history, you know what I mean. Like coming across calorie-rich foods was difficult. So you know, those.
Well,
who
it was
liked
difficult and it was
calorie-rich-
often timely, right? Like, so, like, if you encountered something sweet, what it probably meant is that was going to be in season for the next, like, 10 days, right? You had, like, a week or two to, like, eat as much of that as you could get before it was gone for the rest of the year. So,
Yeah.
it was highly caloric, but also, like, not readily available outside of that specific time.
Well, just generally speaking, like all calorie-rich foods, even ones that aren't sweet, like we tend to like a lot more. So, you know.
But you just don't get the same sort of gorging impulse on, I don't know, lard as you do sugar. Like, there are pixie sticks, which are just sticks of sugar, and cotton candy, which is just a big cloud of sugar. I don't know of a fat analog for that, right? Like little fat sticks.
Go with
You fixed the problem. Everything's running smoothly again.
Nero says electronics in Latin America are a nightmare.
Pump sequence 50%. Keep all systems
He
running.
says,
We're done
protect
in
the
no time.
national industry by making tech
Bugs,
inaccessible
get ready.
and assembling Chinese products.
I got the try.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's like a lot of attempts at economic protectionism down here, but then at the same time, you just see a lot of like backroom deals with China. You know, like there was a lot of there were a lot of moves to like de-gringofy Latin America, and then it's just like, well, we'll just take the Chinese instead.
Yeah.
It'll give us an even worse deal, shittier stuff.
Pump sequence at 75%.
No, so, I mean,
Keep the
like-
pipelines running at all costs.
I don't know why everybody was real big on getting
Malfunction
rid
along
of
the
the
pipeline.
gringo
Maintenance crew, to work.
in that regard.
Off-Tree says Quark is like cottage cheese, but more dry.
This
I mean, I
pipeline
can
is
imagine
fixed,
that.
But there are more outstanding issues.
I do like the moisture, though. I like my moist cottage cheese. Very creamy,
So much better than
dairy-y.
walking. Take that!
I mean, removing some of the moisture is... I mean, it's gonna taste a lot
Extraction
more
of
like
liquid
other
malachite is running again. Keep up the good
drier,
work. We'll be
fresh
done in no
cheeses.
time.
Probably. Mozzarella.
Mozzarella.
Yeah.
Swarm? We got another swarm.
I'm Stony Rock! Lights on it!
I'm ready to press the button.
Excellent work, miners.
And let's
all
do it.
liquid morkite has been processed, and the cargo rocket is fully
Oh,
loaded.
what?
All
I didn't press
systems are go. Just press the launch button.
Damn it.
All objectives completed. Return to the refinery and start up the pump sequence.
Well, get ready to bring your last, or to get your last, whatever, resupply.
Die!
Well done. Cargo rocket is returning to orbit. We're sending in the drop pod to get you out. Hang tight.
Well, yeah, that's because, so, Off-Tree says mozzarella is bouncy, Quark has the texture of wet sand. Yeah, that's, mozzarella's worked, It's work to make it. But I mean, like, they're both just fresh cheeses, basically, and mozzarella's just, I mean, not, on a very basic level, not to offend any mozzarella artisans out there.
3 minutes.
Mozzarella is worked cottage cheese, right? They're both just fresh green cheeses,
Leave me. Yeah,
Croquette minchione.
but one's worked.
let's get the business.
All right, stop shooting. No more ammo.
All
Good team effort.
Last,
The deep dive
or
is
the
progressing
third
smoothly.
section. Last section. So last time we were talking about space, I said, like, I'm not big on the idea of space colonies, or sorry, interplanetary colonies rather than the space colonies. One of the annoying things about planetary colonies is you have all this atmosphere, and you have, this big gravity well, right? And it sucks to get things on and off of a planet. I mean, you know how hard it is to get it off of our planet.
Well, I mean, you're not talking about living conditions where we would have like Earth gravity, right?
What?
Like you're not an advocate for humans living in a condition where they have they live in an environment lacking the equivalent or near equivalent of an Earth gravitation.
I mean,
Of Earth gravity.
we don't
Because-
even know what the parameters we need are, which is the problem, right? So, like, what's Mars's gravity compared to Earth? We know that?
I think it's two-thirds or something. Like it's substantially less.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean, if we lived on Mars, I feel like I don't think there would be long-term health risks for us if we lived on there, but I think over time, I think it would weaken you. So, like, if you were to live on Mars for like most of your life and then you went back to Earth, like you would have health problems on Earth. Earth afterwards.
Yeah,
you know?
so
like you would have a weakened circulatory system.
So I don't know. So I when you said 2/3, I was thinking that was wrong. I just looked it up. It's closer to 1/3.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I believe that. Yeah.
I don't know if we can live there. I mean, something. So when you look at astronauts in the International Space Station now, you know that Canadian guy
Watch out.
went
Drill dozer
blind,
approaching landing
right?
zone.
Lost his vision when he was in space. Microgravity. I mean, so you have the human circulatory system is meant to fight against Earth's gravity to get blood to the head.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, his circulatory system still does that, even though there's no gravity to fight against. And so you built up all this pressure in his head and behind his eyes, and he goes blind, right?
Expect heavy resistance.
And so there's a lot of things about the human body that might not function well or at all under highly different conditions, highly novel conditions regarding to gravity. One of the ones that I'm very concerned about on a very basic level, because we need it to work, is gestation. Until we've got more experiments and information, it's certainly possible that even if adult humans can live on Mars in relative health, if gestation might not be a thing. We might not be able to get women to come to a full-term pregnancy
yeah.
and make babies, which is pretty critical if you want to have a civilization, you know, which obviously we don't.
JF, Garia B the other day, like there was somebody who was like responding to him and saying, "Why are you so obsessed with reproduction? I just don't get it." And then he responded saying, like, this is what somebody on the path to extinction says.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't agree with everything Garia V says and does, but it's just like, you know, like, I mean, he's right about that stuff, totally. Like, there's so many people who are like, man, thinking about reproduction is just lame. It's just like, yeah, you're like,
I mean,
you're gonna go extinct. There aren't gonna be people who think like that in 100 years.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, I like video games, you know, and I like, you know, all the stuff we talk about. But at the end of the day, it's really like side conversations to the real conversation, which has to do with reproduction. Because that's the real conversation, whether you're having it or not. Whether you're participating, that's the real conversation. It's the only one that'll matter.
You know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Like, if I could, boy, I'm getting wrecked here. If I could Snake Plissken the games industry and most other technological industries, like social media and whatnot, like that's the type of thing I'm talking about. I probably would. I would push a button and send us back to a previous era.
And we'll have the drill dozer operational again in no time.
Because overall, I think it's a net negative. But I, you know, that doesn't mean I think that the path forward is to ignore these industries. I think the path forward is to take over these industries. We're not going to be able to destroy them. So, I mean, that's just kind of LARPing. And then once you take them over, there's no point in destroying them because you can repurpose them.
Yeah. Offchi says planet colonization is worth for bragging rights only. Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be... I don't know if you guys ever saw that tweet I made. I said something like, you know, Colossus at Rhodes? I said, make a giant Colossus at Rhodes. One that spans the entire solar system. Like a giant, heroic figure that spans the solar system so that even aliens trying to pass by can't help but notice our greatness. You know? Grab a canister. Fill up with oil shale.
I was getting the nitra deposits.
I think we got enough for to finish this mission, and this is the last one, so
Ready for refueling. Canister in. Just one more.
There's a lot of stuff on the ground too. You can grab.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about this I don't think we talked about this on stream, but I feel like we Westerners, like if we want to mine if we want minerals that other people have in their territory, I don't feel like we should. I think we should negotiate a contract or something whereby like our people go in and mine it. I don't think we should have other people mining it.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll agree to that though.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I think it would be worth even paying them a premium to let us do that rather than have any of their people do it.
The drill dozer is fueled and ready to go.
All right.
Getting supplies.
You don't see any Morkite around here, do you?
I haven't looked. I don't think I saw any though.
Well, go ahead and press the button and sit on the drill dozer. I doubt it, Adrian. Krogan, are you going to make a video on Doom Eternal's Elder Gods ending?
Drill dozer moving. Try to keep up and God
Not
save your
anytime
life.
soon. Probably not. I haven't played it or anything, so. I mean, I played the base game, but I haven't played anything like in terms of DLC. I mean, if I'm swamped with a ton of stuff. I mean, I don't know if I'll have to. I mean, I would be interested in playing it just to see what it is and like how it pans out. But you know, I don't know. We'll see. It's not a high priority.
Slot says, I bought jelly made with sucralose. I wonder if it was the preservative. Sucralose is a sweetener.
Come here.
Isn't that,
Attention
I
team,
think
to keep
from
the
memory
drill dozer
that's
running
an
at full capacity, you need to
indigestible
keep it clear of
carbohydrate
bugs.
that
Also,
tastes
we got
sweet.
an incoming swarm.
And the thing with all the indigestible carbohydrates that taste sweet, they work as artificial sweeteners, but they often, depending on you, right, they can give you a lot of intestinal distress. So just be ready for that. Like things like erythritol. Some people, you know, some people have a hard time. You shooting me? Where the heck is all the Morkite? Well, here's a little bit.
Explosives, guys. Swallow this.
Not much of this stuff around, though. I hear a spitballer. You probably put a shield down?
Anyone guarding the drill dozer? Shield.
Oh my god. Anything up here? No? Jeez. This is gonna be a search for the Morkite after we do the Armor and the Heartstone, probably.
This might seem bloody fit. supply.
Hang in there. Supplies are on the way. Drill Dozer has reached the target. The Omeran Heartstone is jamming our readings.
All right.
But we expect
Well.
heavy pressure when the drilling
Oh,
commences.
there's more stuff over here.
Time to restock. This is doing wonders. That's all you got, you slippery shits. I believe this is a Gherkinchuk. Gherkinchuk here, if I'm not mistaken. Gherkinchuk.
That's a
I'll be right back.
Gherkinchuk.
Gherkinchuk here, if I'm not mistaken.
I have no idea where all this Markite is supposed to be.
All right.
Well, this is gonna be a problem. All right, you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Whack-a-mole!
Drill Dozer has begun cracking the Omeran shell. If you lose the dozer, you lose the mission. So guard it well.
Adrian
against any
says
hostiles.
that your
We got
video
an
on Doom
incoming
Eternal
swarm.
made
Please remember that the Drill
him a
Dozer is
fan
top
of you.
priority.
I never
but
made a
the
video on-
LD what?
The
I never made a
swarm
video
above
on
you-
Doom Eternal. I only made a video on. Oh, okay. Well, I made videos on the pre-release. Like there were like trailers and things. I made videos about that, but I never like made like a full-on like video about the game post-release.
Well, he says the ending of Elder Gods will really disappoint you.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I've said this before, I think, but I think we had one of our guys kind of like in the studio helping to make the trailer, because the trailer was very, very different in terms of like the actually it was the Quake. I think it was the 2018 or 2019 QuakeCon where they played yeah, it was just very misleading in terms of like what the game was going to be like, because playing through that demo they had like all these like, you know, anti-political correctness stuff, like and that just really wasn't like everything you saw in the trailer. That was pretty much the extent, or the QuakeCon gameplay, that was the extent to which you saw any of that in the game. Like if there was anything else in the game, they stripped it out afterwards. Like, you know, they left everything you saw in the QuakeCon demo was left in the game, so they didn't take any of that out, but they certainly didn't add anything else. Like, Earth is the melting pot of the universe. Like, that's still in the game, but it's not like the game really builds off of that, you know, to a larger extent. That's, you know, so the QuakeCon demo was kind of misleading in that regard.
We got a big horde of enemies approaching the Drill Dozer.
But I wouldn't
Defend it
say
or
the
die
game, the
trying.
base game anyway, was like paused or anything.
Drill
Like
Dozer
it's
is
not
at
like
the
it's
halfway
just
point. Keep it running.
just kind of went back to being
Combat position. The swarm's here.
just a basic shoot 'em up, like no real commentary on anything.
Mr. G says, have you heard about that French general almost knowing that those that you mustn't know?
Yes, I know what he's talking about. I made a post on Telegram about it.
Oh.
He was on French television the other day, and he was talking to a Jewish journalist on somebody else's show. I don't know the names of all these people, but they were... He was saying, well, you know who controls the media. You know who controls this company, that company, this outlet, that outlet, and then the French journalist, or I'm sorry, the Jewish French journalist was like, who? And he was like getting like visibly very angry about what he felt the general was implying, and he goaded the general into saying, well, who are you actually talking about? And then the general said to him, well, it's the community with whom you're very familiar. And then, like, everybody on the show got, like, really audibly upset. They were like, no, you can't say that. And the host, like, literally shut it down. And he says, what did he say? On va arrêter là. Like, we're going to stop here. And it was just funny because the guy actually, he didn't explicitly say anything. It was just all implied. And now he's actually under investigation for anti-Semitism.
Investigation.
Yeah. I don't know what the details of that are. Like I've said on Telegram, I'm not entirely familiar with everything that's going on in France right now at the moment. But yeah, like people are not happy about how his behavior on that television show.
Damn it! Here!
So, it's all good, Schmerling, you know, no rush. So I obviously I didn't have a video this morning, but I am working on a video. It's going to be out next weekend, next Saturday. So what we see in the media now is we see individuals like Tucker Carlson using the term anti-white. You know, anti-white is becoming more popular. On Twitter, you saw the Columbia Beagle tweet some sort of video where someone was like, I don't know, blue-haired weirdo was like, don't say critical race theory is anti-white. If you say that, I'm gonna block you, that kind of stuff. So, like, it's getting, like, this way of thinking is getting more common. This term, anti-white, and the thinking about it. Well, the video that I'm going to produce for next weekend, here's the thing. But the basic idea, okay, now we need to search this whole damn cave for Morkite. So look around, find Morkite. We got to get it off the damn walls. You can ping it if you find it. So we need to go to the next step. That's what I want to do with the next video. We need to go to the next step now. And what is the next step? Now that anti-whiteism is being talked about, well, the next step is to understand how serious it is, right? So, how am I going to tell everyone how serious it is in the next video? Well, I'm going to ask the question of how many people die or are victimized by anti-whiteism every year, right?
You should talk about Claire Lehman's tweet, and I'll send it to you because I think I have a copy of it somewhere. But she basically is like one of those centrist liberals who is very anti the idea of, like, critical race theory could lead to white genocide or anything like that.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
so
I saw
think you
her
should
whole
talk about
James
that.
Lindsay thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I don't think she'll fit into what I'm trying to do. I mean, like,
Right.
not to say that she wouldn't be worth talking about, but I just don't know if it's going to fit into the framework I'm thinking of.
I'll bring it back.
But I mean, I'm going to be making the case that basically white people are dying or being attacked or falling into depression and suicide because of anti-whiteism on some level. At the end of the video, I don't think I'll have like a real estimate, like it's X number, right? But I think I'll be able to make the case that if anti-whiteism wasn't a thing, the numbers would likely be lower, right? And I'll be talking about, what's that? Oh, I'm gonna be talking that book. Talking about that book, Makes Me Wanna Holler. God.
I don't know what that is, but that sounds bad.
So it was a black gentleman who wrote it, Nathan McCall. I think he grew up in Southern California, and he recounts his time as an urban youth and the things he did.
Got no flares
He was a
ready.
gangbanger. Stole a lot of things, and, you know. I told you a little bit about this the other day, but in the very first chapter, it's him talking about how him and all his friends saw a white person in their neighborhood, so they went and beat the crap out of him, and that was a thing that they did. And once one of the guys got a driver's license, they'd borrow their uncle's car and they'd go around driving around looking for white people. So, yeah, real swell guys. But
I think we actually have a chance to make it out of
the way I'm planning out the script, I'm gonna hit on that.
Maybe a Jewish Canadian person would interview them and say that they felt really sorry for them, that they felt that they had to do that. You know who I'm referencing?
No.
Oh. Remember that? Well, we did it on a live stream once. It was that Canadian outlet that was interviewing that black guy who wrote a book that was basically a black version of the Turner Diaries, and he was talking about, like, yeah, and the woman, the interviewer, said to the interviewee, "Well, I'm just really sorry that you felt that you had to write something like that, you know." And I mean, she was alluding to the idea of, like, you know, this isn't your fault, you know.
Yeah, if you want to, like,
because of white
murder
supremacy,
white people, then it's actually white people's fault. It's like, you know, I don't think it's ever okay to just want to murder everybody like that. You are looking, right?
Yeah, I just don't see shit.
Yeah, well, it's really hard with all the all the shit that glows.
We're back at the beginning here.
Well, we're almost back at the beginning.
Well, I am. I'm literally where...
Yeah, now you are, yeah. The problem is the Morkite sort of shimmers and glows, but so does, like, everything else in this biome.
I'm not that concerned about... This is a secondary objective, isn't it? So
No. There's no secondary objectives in deep dives. We can't leave until we do this.
Oh. Well, what's that? Pulse stick pod, okay.
Pulsa stick pod. No.
I'm really hoping that we're gonna find some giant fat vein, because if we have to look this difficult, or this much, for every little bit, we're gonna be here a while.
We might be here a while.
I mean, I haven't seen any Morkite this entire... I mean, I know you have, obviously, because you've mined some, but I haven't seen it at all. Period.
Yeah, well, it's hard to find it in this biome in general, but thought I saw some. I didn't. Schmerling says, "Are you familiar with Slaughter of Cities by Michael E. Jones?" I have not read that.
Feel much better now.
Oh, Michael asks, did we see about the news about Chicago? Lori Lightfoot declaring racism a public health crisis. Yeah, well, a lot of cities have done something like that. I did see that recently. I think I talked of, like, I mentioned the idea of the public health crisis sort of thing in my video, like the anti-white narrative controls the world or whatever, that video. But yeah, I mean, we're gonna get more and more of that kind of stuff.
Much better.
Michael says that's the same mayor that wouldn't take questions from a white reporter. Yeah, yeah, she said she had that rule or whatever where she wanted, I don't know if she wanted she wanted, I think, either black reporters or just non-white in general. You know, as long as you weren't white, you're okay. Which is,
Can you not identify as white? And can you just not identify? Can you just say to her, like, I don't
she
identify as
identified you as white.
Yeah. So this whole idea of, like, you can just identify as whatever and everything being a social construct, you know, like it's
That fades away pretty
nobody
quick.
Yeah, and no one really believes that, do they?
No, they don't. They do like to say it, though. I like to say they believe it. It's one of the, like, one of those religious tests for proving you're a good person. You're supposed to say it. Hey.
See here.
Oh, oh, oh. Bang.
More kite found.
I see a bunch of it. I would just shoot it down, but
I'm coming.
it's big, and I think you could zip line up to it from where I'm standing. Oh.
I found some more kite.
I think it's big. Maybe it's not that big. It's big. Goes from here over. But yeah, that's but yeah, so back to the space stuff, you know. We didn't get to talk about this the other day, but, you know, I'm concerned that with Mars's 1/3 gravity, you know, someone like Elon could spend a whole bunch of money, you know, setting up some sort of colony on Mars, and then we can't really live on it because you can't have a family on it, right? You can't actually, you know, procreate. But, well, and, you know, there's options, right? So let's say you're on Mars and there's not enough gravity to do what you need to do. You could imagine sort of like a merry-go-round or a carousel. You can maybe jump in that
Over here by the
alcove if you
marker
need to.
point.
If you stick it up there, I can dig into the wall. 'Cause there's the
more
Morkite.
here.
Yeah, there we go. You might want to let me go first. I'll dig into the wall. But you can, just like you can create basically gravity, you know, it's not exactly gravity. You're creating something like gravity when you create a spinning or a rotating habitat in space. You can do the same sort of thing by spinning a slanted thing.
Is there any more up here, or was that it?
I think that's it. Keep looking. You can spin a sort of slanted building, right? Slanted floor building to create a sort of artificial gravity on a planet. But now you're doing that in an atmosphere, which is, you know, drag, and you're doing it
You're a good mule, Solid.
under a gravity, which means, so you're going to have friction with whatever is underneath, right? Just seems like way more of a pain in the ass to start spinning things on planets to create gravity than spinning things, I don't know, just in space. I mean, spinning things in space is very easy. And in fact, that's one of the ways we could have in the future. We might have kinetic batteries. So kinetic batteries, imagine if you had like a big flywheel in space, 0G. Well, if you say, well, I have this extra energy, you know, you can use energy to do work. Work in this case would be spin the wheel faster, right, if it's already spinning. And you just add speed to the wheel, and then you could have it spinning for thousands of years and then pull energy off the wheel, right? Slow the spinning down. Not the same on a planet, which is probably going to require constant input. Way more than, you know. Oh my god.
I found some more
Ooh.
hides.
Thank god. The big?
I've got a zip line ready here.
Schmerling says, do you guys think aliens exist? And if so, what do you make of the Fermi paradox? I mean, there's certainly a chance that aliens exist somewhere. I don't think they're, like, here. I don't think they're hanging out with us, and nor do I think that they're, you know, like, visiting. Nor do I think they're in our atmosphere. You know, UFOs.
I don't think there are aliens in our solar system.
No, there's no aliens in our
I don't think
solar
there's
system.
ever been aliens in our solar system.
Any aliens in our solar system would be microbes. You know, like a Martian microbe. Okay, I'm close here. How much do we need now?
I actually think
4? We need 4? Find any Morkite anywhere, and we should have enough?
Oil shade. Look what I found. Found something. Guys, are you blind? Look over here.
Oh man, this is some great gameplay. So, and you know, one of
yeah, I picked up some. Where's Molly? Are we near Molly?
these,
Move your tin ass
there.
over here. The mule is here.
but
I think we might have enough now.
do you have 4?
Hold on, we'll see.
All necessary more
Oh, thank
collected.
God.
Objective completed.
All right, let's get the hell out of here.
Drop pods on the way. Hang in there.
Well, my most recent video, where I actually talked about why I don't want to technologically uplift aliens. Right, like a primitive alien. I don't want to technologically uplift them. You know, in there, I sort of talk
Drop pod
about,
has arrived. The mule has been called back.
you know, my sort of idea about,
Drop pod departing in
and I don't
T-minus
phrase it
5
this way,
minutes.
but filters that we might not have otherwise thought of. You know, a lot of times when people think of the Fermi paradox, they're like, okay, well, is the life that you get intelligent enough? And it's like, intelligent enough might not be enough, right? There might be a lot of other factors that we're not thinking of.
Always slap the dice for good luck.
That you know, an organism might be fully intelligent enough, might never destroy itself, right? That's what a lot of people are thinking. They're thinking like, okay, one filter is whether you destroy yourselves. But, is there aliens somewhere? I would think that there's a decent chance there's other
T-minus 4 minutes.
life forms outside of our solar system, you know, but it doesn't appear like there's anything active in our galaxy, not like sophisticated, right?
Fucking stone.
There's
One
nothing,
for the books.
as far as we can
Escape pod.
tell, like very, very active to the point where like they're utilizing like the supermajority of the energy that comes up from their star. If there were civilizations that were using the supermajority of the energy coming from their star, and even maybe adjacent stars, if they were starting to colonize the galaxy, we would notice. And I mean, like, when you're looking at things in galactic time frames, you know, it's one of these things where it's like, what are the chances that we see them in the act of building their civilization? You know, on galactic time frames, given what we think how galactic colonization would work, is from the time frame of a galaxy, it would be the blink of an eye, where it would be like, you're on your own planet, and then the moment you begin interstellar colonization of your galaxy, it's almost already done within, like, very short amount of time comparative to everything else.
Yeah.
So you would generally expect,
And we've seen this pan out with humanity.
Mhm.
Like, you know, human groups that have gone out and like, once compare all of European history, or the history of humanity within Europe, and then compare the amount of time it took to colonize most of the planet after they started going out and colonizing it. You know, it's
Mhm.
just like it was an exponential rate. You know, it was just like, it didn't compare at all to how long it took them to get to, you know, 1492. And I mean, I'm just using that's not like the correct date, but you get my point.
so you're generally like, if you wake up in a galaxy somewhere and your organism, your people haven't colonized anything outside of your solar system, you're generally expecting to either wake up in a galaxy that's not colonized at all by anyone, or has been completely colonized by someone else already. You're generally not expecting to wake up in a galaxy that's, like, partially colonized, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, this is kind of the danger. Well, I think if we find another alien life form first, we'll be good. But if they find us first, it probably means they'll wipe us out.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a possibility. I don't know exactly how it'll work out. Lots of people have postulated different possibilities in terms of how that
Yeah, I
could
mean, it
work out.
depends.
But
I mean, if they're a lot like Westerners were when they went out, you know, like maybe they'll have some kind of notion of like if they have any kind of notion of like biological preservation, conservationism, then, you know, if they appreciate diversity in the true sense of the word, then we'll be good. But I mean, if they don't have that for whatever evolutionary reason, I mean, and they have the ability to colonize a galaxy. I mean, our solar system. Like, by the time they enter our solar system, we're done. Like, you know, like their technology would be so advanced that, like, I don't think that there would be a likelihood that we would have any kind of ability to defend ourselves against them. And this is why all those movies about like ground war invasions of aliens are like so preposterous to me. Like it's like the least efficient way to invade a planet and take it over. Like, you know, what you would do is, I mean, you would probably have, I mean, just off the top of my head, like what you would do is you would find out what was the basis, what was the general basis for biological life there, or the organism that was potentially the least troublesome or the most troublesome, and you would just create a virus to wipe that out, you know. And that would be probably easy to do for a species that had interstellar travel capabilities. I mean, they probably would have some kind of like electrical impulse or electromagnetic impulse weapon of some sort. They could just I don't know. I would just feel like they could globally wipe everything out in a very, very short period of time with like minimal effort. Like, I do not think that there would ever be a ground world a la Battle of Los Angeles or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it would just, that's just ridiculous to me. I don't know what how you feel about that.
Well, I'm not exactly sure how it'll all work out. You know, like what would the interactions be like?
Well, I'm not debating that. I mean, I agree with you. Like, we can't, you know, that's kind of really up in the air. What I'm saying is, if an alien species had interstellar capability and were hostile toward us, there would be no ground war on Earth. Like, there would be no D-Day style
what are they
invasion.
gonna?
Like, they would just wipe us out immediately.
Well,
like,
yeah, and they probably wouldn't even bother with a virus or anything, because what would... If they're hostile to us, they probably want the resource. And the resource is the planet. They probably they probably don't want the planet for the planet. They want the planet for its mass. They're going to make things out of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So they could just vaporize the surface, right? They sterilize the planet.
I mean, what I'm saying, no matter which way you cut it, you're not going to get like this Mass Effect 3 style. Like, I mean, that was the most preposterous aspect of Mass Effect 3, that you would have like this machine race of like organic machine hybrids that had literally been evolving for millions of years and had collected like the collective memories of like thousands upon thousands of intelligent species. And, you know, again, had been around and had been developing for millions of years. Like, there would be no ground war. There would be no, like, slow invasion. Right. You know, like, it would all be over, like, in an instant. Like,
yeah. Well, in the other stream, I talked about how you could move stars and potentially move entire galaxies, right? By sort of constructing this shell around a star and creating this outlet for the energy, and then it pulls the star. Well, if you just build that and point it at a planet, everything on the surface of the planet is going to die. And that's what they could do to us. And it only takes 24 hours for our planet to rotate. I mean, they'll get everything. There'll be nothing living within Earth's crust within 24 hours. Yeah, I mean,
the point is that, like, there's a myriad of ways that like, a super advanced interstellar traveling capable entity could go about destroying its opposition or its obstacles.
And what I said
planet.
just
and
there
none of them would
doesn't
involve...
require that they do it to our star either. They could do it with a different star and vaporize us from light years away.
Yeah.
But here's how I represented it.
I mean, a gamma ray burst from a distant star could wipe us out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I mean, it's statistically a low probability, but, you know, I mean, it could. And eventually, you know, something like that will happen eventually, which is, again, a reason why we have to leave the Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want all your eggs in one basket. But I have Paint open, and I represented, you know, it's like, here, if this is a galactic timescale for, you know, an organism, you know, here they are as, like, amoebas, right? Well, this is not... Really, on a galactic timescale, it's like, here they are as amoebas, you know, and then they develop technology. Well, they evolve into whatever they are, develop technology. They have this, like, colonial period, and then there's this. It's like, just goes on forever. It's post-interstellar expansion where they've already colonized the entire galaxy. You know, it's just it's a flash. So the fact that the entire Milky Way isn't already colonized is, to me, fairly decent evidence that no one has started, right? No one started that. And there's a decent chance that if you want to find the most intellectually sophisticated organism in the galaxy, it might be on Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So...
No, I agree with all that. I think that's a pretty accurate way. I mean, yeah.
There could be other sophisticated life in the universe, and if for example, the most sophisticated life in the universe will only ever develop the technology to travel intergalactically at like half the speed of light, right? If that's the fastest that anyone will ever go. There's a chance that the other intelligent life in the universe is actually so far from us that we could never meet. Like, it's not possible to meet. In fact, we won't... That, like, we might be able to see their galaxies now, but what we're seeing, when you look at anything, you're looking at a past image. You're looking at light that reflected off of them, and then took like a tiny fraction of a second to get to you if they're in the same room. But, you know, when you look at other galaxies, that was a long time ago. Well, it could be that by the time we would finally see the light from when they were colonizing their galaxy, they're already outside of our observable universe. Right? So we won't even get to see it, essentially. Nero says, what if the aliens are hot blue chicks, though? Well, that does complicate things, doesn't it?
I don't think it does.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
No.
Like I said before, they're like that's more perverse than copulating with the most genetically distant related organism on Earth. Like, it's worse than that. Like, there are no hot blue chicks outside of it's just dumb.
Hot blue chicks.
You know, I used to think that it would be like exceedingly preposterous that there would be an organism that would evolve, like the humanoid form would show up a whole lot throughout, like, you know, different galaxies or whatever, or throughout the galaxy if there was in fact like a Mass Effect type of universe. But, you know, there could be some reason why the bipedal form, because I mean, we do know, like, depending on what the gravity is of the planet, like, you know, organisms tend to, like, if you reach a certain size, it becomes disadvantageous, you know, because of the gravity. So there are, like, physics reasons why certain forms of life might show up more often than others. But that said, I don't know. I haven't studied this enough to have a definitive opinion, but it seems like there's probably a particular form of life on Earth that statistically speaking, we would be more likely to see a similar form of that off our world somewhere. It's probably like the bipedal human form is probably not the most statistically probable form of. Yeah, it might be, but I kind of think that I don't know. I mean, I would definitely say that, like, an intelligent life form that evolved would probably have free appendages that weren't, like, you know, used for ambulatory purposes.
Yeah.
You know, like,
they would need to have, and the appendages would likely need to be fairly dexterous, like our hands and fingers are, and not something like appendages like crab claws.
Right. Right, and that's why I always found it interesting that, like, and like a lot of like the three, like the ham-fisted three fingers on a lot of, like, Mass Effect characters, to me it was always like, well, how are those people, like, more advanced than humans when it's just like, you know, and their technology, the technology that they use doesn't really reflect that. It's still, like, very small things that they would operate with that you would expect somebody with large, stubby, three-fingered hands would have problems with. So, yeah, I mean, if anything, I would expect even more sophisticated species to have, like, appendages with digits that were even smaller and maybe more numerous. Although I don't know if, you know, like, how advantageous is our pinky?
Well, I mean, it allows you to be fancy.
Sure.
You need that.
But, you know, I would say, I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting stuff to think about.
I mean, the way I'm thinking about it is, you know, this form allowed us to get this far. I think it's a safer assumption. Like, if you have one example of a life form that has achieved, let's say, some amount of spaceflight within its own solar system, and you only have one example, it's safer to assume your one example is typical than, like, highly atypical, right?
I don't know. I could look at it. I could look at that the opposite way.
Ow.
Well, if it's the only one that did that, then it's highly atypical.
No, it's not. It's not about being the only one who did that. It's the only example you have.
Uh-huh.
So imagine, like, well, we can take. Imagine if you.
We can't really say it's typical or atypical in the sense of, like, in terms of organisms that have achieved X. You can't say if it's typical or atypical because it's the only.
No, we're
example you have.
speculating on typicality, right?
Yeah.
So let's just take one trait, right? Imagine you met one person and you measured their trait, like their height. It would be generally safer to assume that they're around the average-ish height for humans than to just make the assumption that they're, like, way atypical and at the ends of the distribution. Like, it's not necessarily correct to assume that they're average, but it's likely it's going to be correct more often, right?
Yeah. But that's. Yeah. It's the safer bet.
Yeah.
It's the safer bet.
I mean, I think there's a decent chance that, I think it's a decent chance that if we meet if there's sophisticated aliens out there, they're bipedal, they have something like 2 arms with fairly dexterous appendages, I think there's a decent chance that they evolved from something that was omnivorous or carnivorous, likely giving them binocular vision, so they look forward with both eyes for depth perception and fiddling with small things in front of their face, rather than eyes on the sides of their head like a prey animal, right?
I mean, I don't know how intelligent. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if I thought about this a while, it would make sense. But it seems like an intelligent being almost requires, in terms of evolution, requires vision. Obviously, you can have blind people who are very intelligent and are able to do very intelligent things without their vision. But in terms of, evolving as a species, I would feel like vision and depth perception would be required. Like, it seems like,
well, if you'd never develop the depth perception in terms of just utility of moving around and seeing things, you might never develop the same sort of cognitive 3D visual spatial needed for engineering of
I guess if
systems.
you had some kind of, like, sonar, if you had some extremely advanced sonar, like, that was just pulsating so quickly and so often that you basically had, I mean, that might actually be able to 3-dimensionalize your environment.
The only thing is, we're likely never going to encounter, like, the way I see it is, if you have, like, a really highly intelligent alien whose environment is underwater, I don't know if they'll ever cross the technological hurdles. I don't know if they'll ever develop metallurgy.
Well, they might not have that Well, you think about it. If you're a species that develops in the water, you don't have to protect yourself from the elements, uh, in a way that you would
Hmm.
on the surface. So right there, it's not that metallurgy is solely for building purposes. You can use it for other purposes, but like like holding liquids. Like you're not gonna need to hold liquids. Um, you're not gonna need to shield yourself from others from the elements. I mean, the only thing you would develop metallurgy for in that regard would be maybe some kind of weapon. I mean, at least that's the only purpose I could think of offhand. But like, yeah, in that kind of environment, there just simply wouldn't be a need for the intellectual development of a lot of stuff that's needed on the surface.
Hmm.
So,
Well, I mean, I think even if you had a need, I don't know, uh, like if you can't make metal, you're not leaving the planet.
mhm.
So I don't think you can do metallurgy underwater as a even if you're a highly intelligent organism, but a primitive one technologically. If you're bound to the
Well,
water, I don't
it's
think
a
you're
long
leaving.
shoot, but what you could do is you could create like underwater dry ducts or docks. Where you would do that sort of thing. Um,
That seems like
you
such
could
a huge leap.
Well, I mean, if you're an underwater species, and you might I mean, traveling to the surface might be your version of a land animal traveling to an underwater environment or space. You might develop over time.
But we developed metallurgy way before we could like send explorationary submarines down there to document life there.
Sure, but if as long as you're not like a super depth species, like it's feasible that you could travel outside of your water environment on land for a limited amount of time. Um,
I'm just saying, like, okay, give all dolphins
it's
180
unlikely. It
IQ.
seems unlikely.
If all dolphins were geniuses on human
Yeah,
levels,
yeah.
they're still like really behind the eight ball. Even if you gave them hands
Hmm.
to ever accomplish anything, I think,
Yeah.
because they're
No,
underwater.
right. Hmm.
So,
Uh,
and that comes into like, so I didn't talk about this in my most recent video, but
well, I
I
mean,
do think about
hold on, hold on.
uplifting
If you just look at the ideal form underwater forms, like there's nothing that
crabs.
approaches. Yeah, I mean but even that though, that doesn't really approach the kind of appendages one needs to do the types of things that we're talking about. Like there's just nothing.
If they had enough legs, maybe. Horseshoe crabs?
Yeah, I mean, I would, it does seem like if a crab had an IQ of 180, it would be able to do far more than a dolphin.
Yeah, he's got the hands. He can manipulate things
Um,
rather than with the mouth, like a dolphin.
yeah. Yeah, this is what makes me get kind of upset when people act like they celebrate all these humans with like congenital heritable diseases where they're born without appendages or something like people celebrate them finding a mate and having kids and passing on that to other kids, and it's just like I don't think that that's ever going to occur to such a level where you'd have half a society appendageless. um but it just always boggles my mind how people don't understand that, like, human hygiene or racial hygiene isn't really evil. It's just kind of like a prerequisite for maintaining life. Like, if you have X amount of your, if like, let's not even think about it in terms of race, but it just in general broad human terms. If you had X amount of humanity that was disabled and not like, because a lot of disabled people do not have the physical requisites necessary to assemble. They might have the intellectual ability, but they don't have the physical ability to assemble the technology that they need to survive.
Hmm.
So you need X amount of the population to have both the physical and intellectual ability to be able to maintain civilization such that you can build like these motor like Stephen Hawking, absolute genius. But let's just say he was born with whatever. What did he ended up dying of? What was it?
I don't know.
Yeah, but he was completely immobile by the end of his life. Let's just say he was born like that. I mean, his intelligence wouldn't have mattered for shit. Like he couldn't have done anything. And so you need X amount of people who are completely ambulatory and intellectually capable to build things that
Motor neuron
allow somebody.
disease?
I think something like that. So y- the point is that you need X amount of people who are physically and mentally capable to build something or the equipment that Stephen Hawking's used toward the end of his life that allowed him to be productive. No one's saying that people with certain ailments can't be productive, but their productivity is contingent upon certain requisites, i.e., a certain amount of society not being disabled. Um, and there are a lot of people who I feel like today in the woke world, just in the world in general, not even like wokenites, but just like average good folk, average decent people who just don't understand that you really can't have a society of like 25% disabled.
Yeah.
Like you get into huge problems when because it's not even like you would just overload the system. Like if let's just say we get up to like 10% of our society is like immobile for various reasons. That's going to put a lot of stress on the rest of society. You're going to have X amount of mobile society, non-disabled society dedicated to upkeep of the technology and infrastructure necessary to render the rest of that 10% of society productive.
Mhm.
Now maybe it'll equal out. Maybe I mean you could theorize that 10% of society that's immobile, they disproportionately produce some kind of intellectual trade-off. I don't know.
Mhm.
But these are things that people just don't think about. They just look at civilization and everything we have as an absolute given. It is an absolute. They take it for granted that it will continue onward unimpeded and that we have reached a level of civilization at this point that is virtually unstoppable. And it's like, no, that's a very, very dangerous way to think. And people get very, very uncomfortable with the idea of like, life being a continuous struggle. And when I say life being a continuous struggle, I just mean like broadly speaking for any species, like life is struggle. If you ignore that principle, you are seriously running the risk of extinction and setbacks and suffering and all kinds of bad things. I mean, and this is one reason why, like, per capita, it's better to have men in charge than women because women per capita are more emotionally driven and they're not going to be as equipped as your average man to not react really emotionally to those types of decisions. Like your average man is going to more likely be able to say, "Yeah, I don't like the way this makes me feel, but I can understand that this is a decision I need to make for the betterment of for not even the betterment, but for the maintenance for the survival of myself and the people around me." Whereas your average female is going to be a little bit more emotionally compromised in terms of being able to make those necessary decisions. And again, that's always what's depressing about talking about these types of things is that there are so many people who think that because you're talking about these things, you must not have any emotional response to them whatsoever. It's like you must get some kind of sick, morbid, megalomaniacal joy out of talking about, the inferiority of somebody who's wheelchair bounded their entire life. Like you must feel like superiors. It's like it's to me, it's like it's kind of like a math problem. It's like um for the most part, like I do have an emotional reaction to it. Like I don't like the idea of like, because I've seen really nice people who are disabled and they've found a partner and they've been really happy and all that, and I don't really like the idea of talking about this type of stuff to them because I know how it's going to make them feel, and I'm a human being and I have feelings and I have reactions to that, but that doesn't make me ignore that doesn't render me blind to uh what the potential problems are in ignoring this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Well, if you look back at Detroit, people will have various stories they'll tell you about Detroit, about, it failed because of this or that or whatever reason. And I think the biggest factor was the long hot summer of 1967. But the fact is, Detroit was a pillar of civilization, or it was in many ways a peak.
maybe an outpost. Maybe you want to call it an outpost.
It was a
Well,
peak. It was so
yeah.
like it stood high above many other places. Many Europeans in the 50s and 60s who wanted to visit the United States, Detroit was one of the most significant places they would want to visit. It was on the Great Lakes, connected to so many other things, right? It was a center of industry, but it was also a center of culture. If you wanted to see some of the latest plays by some of the best playwrights and the best theatrical actors, the best thespians, Detroit was on your radar. And Detroit, of course, turned to absolute trash. I mean, there are these theaters and churches and huge buildings where hundreds of thousands of people lived, that were, in their time, some of the nicest in the world. And it went to total hell. And
Yeah, and
the
it didn't go
fact
to hell in
people-
50 years. It went to hell in like 20.
yeah, the fact is, people feel very secure that this won't happen to a whole country. And they shouldn't feel that secure about that, because this can happen. This certainly could happen to a whole
This is
country.
what makes me very uncomfortable about how a lot of white people think. They think that like a lot of white people are aware of like anti-white discrimination, but they're still not willing to like undergo they're not willing to embrace like ethnic nationalism in a sense of like we need to redistribute people. We need to have our own spaces and all of that because they keep thinking in terms of, well, I wouldn't want anybody telling me I can only live in North Carolina or I can only live in Maine or whatever. I wouldn't want anybody telling me that. And it's like you still don't get it. Like this is not going to be reciprocated to you. Like eventually, like we'll get it down to something like 30 or 25% of the population, and only then are you going to understand that this will not be reciprocated. We will probably be only then will the anti-white trajectory have reached a threshold where like it will become overwhelmingly obvious to these people that ethnic nationalism is the only safe way to avoid mass tragedy. And I think by then it could be too late to avoid mass tragedy, for either ourselves or for other people. If you get down to 30% of the U.S. being white, or like 25% or whatever, I mean, like we are going to be virtually powerless. We're not going to have rights in the same way that anybody has had in the U.S. prior. We will. It will be very bad, and so all these white people today who are still like, they're like, okay, I recognize that there are differences between groups. I recognize that there is such a thing as anti-whiteism and whatnot, but I'm not willing to kind of do what needs to be done. I'm not willing to judge like I still want to judge everybody as an individual. It's like, well, you know, as we decline in the percentage, the representative percentage of the population, in a de facto default sense, like it's going to be everyone is going to be less and less able to treat everybody as an individual. It's just as the white population becomes less and less, like the ability for anybody to judge other people as individuals, it's like that's going to decline. It's just going to absolutely decline. And so like I just see all these people, like I guess it's mostly older white people. Um I these are things I really wish we had like poll data on to be able to gauge.
Well, it's probably
But
more older. I mean, we do have some stuff. So obviously, on the screen here, I got the Pew poll about how people view whether people view their own race as important.
right.
And so here it's the majority of every group other than whites. So if you want to live in a society where you don't get judged based on from race, then you need to live with the top group. And that group there, the more your society is made out of this group, the more you get what you want, and the less society is made out of that group, the less you get what you want.
I think though that poll in particular is probably accurate to a certain extent, but it's probably also to a certain extent not as accurate as you might think, because at this point there's a set of incentives for white people to um, deny their own race, to demonize their own race.
Well, I mean, some
Um,
of those people may have said important.
I'm sorry, I'm not. I guess I'm not following.
So, percentage of each group saying that being their race is very important to how they think about themselves. So they could have said yes if they viewed
I
their race
see.
as
Yeah, yeah,
negative.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But if you, and I don't remember, so I forget, it's 2017 study. I've shown it before in my videos where they looked at just 18 to 34-year-olds, and it was higher than this among whites to consider their race pretty important. So it's likely that the younger people are getting it a little bit more because they're forced to live in a more multicultural society, right? But
Mhm.
here on the screen, I mean, this is Detroit, vintage Detroit. This is a high school auditorium. I mean, and then this was what it became, right? I mean, this represented some of the best of its day. And it all went to hell. And there's no reason to feel so confident that everything else, it'll all stay together, that we won't, like, if someone truly believes that there's no chance for humanity to regress significantly technologically,
This
infrastructurally,
is just all part of the historical record. I
societally
mean,
over the next
this
few
is
hundred
yeah.
years, they're wrong.
They're totally wrong. I mean, people have written like well-documented book. I mean, you don't even have to write a well-documented book on this. I mean, if you recognize that Greek civilization fell, that
Yeah.
Roman civilization fell, that various Chinese civilizations have fallen, that all kinds of civilizations throughout, the Aztec and the Mayan civil and the Inca and civilizations all fell. Like all these various civilizations fall. There's a natural ebb and flow. There's a natural rise and decline. Uh, a lot of people are. I guess. I mean, I agree that even among the European diaspora, the general aggregate IQ has gone down. Like, I do agree with Dutton and Woodley and others who have posited that Western civilization kind of reached an IQ peak in around the 1850s. I think we've had multiple peaks. Like I think if you went back to ancient Greece or Rome, like you would have. I actually suspect that their IQ might have been higher. Their average IQ might have been higher. But I do believe that we had a relative recent peak in around 1850. I mean, if you look at the general, and there's kind of like contributing factors as to why we would see this decline. But if you look at the general level of writing, I mean, even if you go back and you read like letters from average soldiers or settlers or whatnot, I mean, these were people who weren't like super literate. Like they made all these weird spelling mistakes and whatnot. Yet their sentence construction. I mean, you got to remember too that they didn't have like um, they didn't have spell check. They didn't have digital writing mechanisms whereby they could just delete something. You know what I mean? Like they wrote everything out in one fell swoop. And if you look at their sentence structure and their syntax, I think it's far more representative of general higher intelligence. So I do think that that's a thing. But at the same time, I think that you would expect there to be in a scholastic sense and a general appearance of some intelligent decline in intelligence just because everything's been dumbed down so much. Um, the general standards have been lowered and lowered and lowered, and so I think I do think that there's probably been a genetic decline. I mean, and there are data for this showing that there's been a decline in the frequency of certain genetic alleles associated with intelligence among Europeans. But that said, I don't think that fully explains the overall state of, let's say, intellectual prowess in the West. Um, some of it really is just a decline in standards. But yeah, so either way, we're definitely on some kind of decline, and a lot of what's holding us back from suffering more negative consequences than we are right now is the fact that we have all this tech from our predecessors in place that kind of buttresses uh, the inevitable decline. And kind of what's really worrisome about that is that once demographics and other factors become too much of a burden, it will probably be like a dam breaking. It won't be something that like there will be like a gradual decline. Uh, like you'll probably get some like gradual indications of decline. I mean, I think we're already starting to see that to some extent, but like there will be a point where there'll be like a precipitous fall, I suspect, or at least I see that as a possibility. Like we could get to a point where the standards have lowered so much, and that demographics and general IQ have changed things so much that it's no longer possible to really maintain what we currently have, and then you're going to have some like serious problems with maintaining infrastructure and if you don't have like if you don't have the right group mindset to address that, then you'll have like shitty software running on declining or degrading hardware, let's say, and it'll just like exacerbate the problem. Like if you had like this mass awakening, like even if the general IQ was going down, 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 but then at a certain point there was a precipitous fall, but there was like an ideological framework in place that like recognized all the problems for what they were, like you could probably address the problems and come back from the problems to a reasonable extent. But if there's like this terrible, terrible set of ideologies and thought processes and paradigms and perspectives in place on top of all that, like it'll just make everything 10 times worse, and we'll like literally be digging ourselves further into a grave.
Well, not to mention, if there's like a significant decline, sort of disaster strikes, and the anti-white narrative is still the mainstream narrative, then
Right.
you'll know who's going to get blamed, and
Right.
people will be out for blood.
Right. This is something too that really worries me. People, like a lot of white people who cling to this individualist mindset still, even though on some level they recognize aggregate group differences and the anti-whiteisms, like they still don't, for whatever reason, comprehend this notion that like especially Claire Lehman. It's like,
Mhm.
you know, it's like, what did I say on Twitter? It's like she thinks that because the indications are it's not going to happen in the next 5 minutes, that it's never going to happen. And it's like, it will happen it will get to a point, it's like you say, if the anti-white paradigm continues, and things get worse and worse and worse economically, politically, socially, so on and so forth, then it's only natural that everyone's going to blame white people still, and even more, and they'll be even more angry. And it's just like I wish Claire Lehman would see that, because then at that point, when you are an absolute numeric minority, like in an extreme minority, and everybody blames you for absolutely everything falling apart at that point, like, yeah, white genocide becomes a uh, real possibility. I mean, especially when along the 20, 30, 50 years that it took to get you to that extreme minority position, there were all these governmental pushes to disenfranchise you. Like right now, the state's attorney in the FBI are declaring, anybody with any kind of, they're basically coming up with a series of mechanisms by which they can politically persecute any white person that isn't even really a white supremacist, or a white nationalist, but somebody who kind of doesn't go along with the political consensus. Um, you know, all these things are contributing to a certain trajectory, and people like Claire Lehman don't see that, or they do and they're denying it.
Mhm.
I personally think that she doesn't see it.
Well, I mean,
She
the
doesn't
way
get it.
these things work, I mean, how do they work? Well, they're gradual, and then they're sudden, right? It
Exactly.
happens slow, and just a little bit, and then it's everything.
I mean, yeah,
How did the
it's
Rwandan
like
genocide
these
happen?
movements, right? Right.
Slow,
It's not like these
and
movements.
then all of a sudden.
Um, it's not like it took 20 years for the Hutu to massacre almost a million Tutsis with machetes. Like there was a series of events that culminated with this uh, 800 some thousand murders of Tutsis in the span of like what, 2 months,
Yeah.
something like
And
that.
there's nothing that the Hutus didn't say on the radio back then that there aren't people saying about us right now on YouTube and Twitter and everywhere else. All the accusations of evil, of manipulation that were pointed at the Tutsi by the Hutu. Those all exist right now against us. So
I totally agreed, and we're in a position right now to ensure that this doesn't happen. Like, okay, we like in terms of time and what our numbers are in terms of the population and whatnot. I'm not speaking about like what the current ideological state is, but like right now at this point in time, if all white people were to get on board with what needs to be done to prevent violence, we could do that.
yeah.
Like we have the ability and the time to do that right now. But that window is fading. That window is closing. That opportunity is going away. And I mean, which is just it's really sad, because a lot of people think that they're being super moral by clinging to these mindsets, these individualist mindsets, when really in the long run they're being immoral, because they're going to bring about violence on themselves, on their own people, and on others, and on people like I'm even being gracious here in saying that I want to impede violence against non-whites, because it's not like you're going to get to a point where there's a Haitian style massacre of white people and white people aren't going to retaliate. Like like if there's we might lose. That's a possibility, but um, you're not going to get down. Non-whites are not going to be able to go on a murderous rampage of white people and not suffer any consequences. Like there will be, like at that point, you're gonna have an actual race war. So it's like I'm tired of these quote unquote individualists clinging to a mindset that will bring about ethnic violence. And I'm tired of people acting like the kinds of things that we talk about are promoting ethnic violence when in reality, they're desperately trying to impede ethnic violence and stop it before it happens.
Wow. I'm gonna open up the chest on D Live. We're 10 minutes over.
Yeah. All right.
It's opening. It's opening. Well, this was fun. So, like I said, let's take a look at the calendar here. Next Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be streaming Democracy, the video game. I'll hang out with Krogan on Saturday. But then after that... Oops. Jeez. Then after that, thanks for the ice cream, Meta and Johnny. After Saturday, after next Saturday, when I hang out with Krogan, I'm gonna go on a little bit of a break. I'll be out for a couple weeks. Be with the family for 4th of July for a while, and
Awesome.
I'll come back mid next month. So you'll see me again mid July, but the end of this month and early July I'll be out. No streams. So yeah, you'll just have to rewatch the old videos. All right. Well, I think I'm about out. You got anything before we go, Krogan?
No, that's it. I had fun. Thanks for having me on again.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. Peace out.